Okay, so this is showing how to get content from Google Docs and use that in a website, in a static builder or in a site builder. In this case, I'm not using Hugo, I'm using SvelteKit. Um, I have not tried coming up with a Hugo equivalent because I haven't had a need there yet, but I think if the same, I think the same kinds of information and that we're processing, and I think it would work. I think most of it's JSON or HTML requests. So anyway, it should all kind of work, but you'll get the idea from this. So in this case, I have a folder, a Google Drive folder called methods, and in that folder, I have a set of Google Docs that for each method, right? So then in my routes, I have a route endpoint of methods here, and as a server-side function before, and this doesn't have to be server-side. This could be like in Hugo, just on build, but for pre-rendering, I do the server-side. So I set a folder ID. This could be something you pass in as well as like a function of the page, but this would be like the folder ID for the method. And then I have just a little compare function to do kind of an alphabetical sort of those method articles or method files. And then I do this little on load in SvelteKit. There's a load function, and I just import the fetch um, action, the fetch function. So I set a response that's awaiting the fetch. And then what I did was I made a make endpoint in make.com. I made a little webhook for that, and I pass into it the folder ID, an FID of the folder that I want to query. Now in Make, all I do is on the endpoint, I receive that. I then use an authenticated connection to Google Drive to list everything, list files in the folder. And I think I filter that if it's type doc. I don't remember that exactly. But anyway, I pass in that folder ID, which I get from here, pass it into the FID parameter, and then I get back um, yeah, essentially a JSON response that is all of the methods, all of the data in the folder. And then essentially here, I return a new data property that will go on down to children of this layout, this methods that is the sorted um, using a sort function, this compare name sort function to sort the methods so that I get an alphabetical sort of those. So now I have this methods object. So then on the page layout, I export data. So I receive the data from that load function here. And then down in this section, I say for each data methods as method, then I get then I make a route. I'm essentially building a little linked list of href slash method slash name. I lowercase it and I replace spaces with dashes, kind of slugify the the name of the doc, the Google Doc, into a slug, and then I just render the name here. So that makes a list of links. And then if you click on one of these, now we're going to go into the methods route, which is going to be this. This is a dynamic route. And now I'll have it like a method ID as the value that I'll be getting passed in to this route. So I import the sanitize HTML NPM package, and this lets me sort of clean up the HTML for Google Docs is kind of garbage. Like I think it looks like it's purposefully terrible. So um, I want to clean that up a little bit. There's also another, I found another NPM package that I have not tried yet that actually takes instead of getting the HTML of the Google Doc and working with it, that you actually request the JSON um, structured data of that doc and then use that and parse it and process it and return a nice HTML version of that. I did not try that package yet, but that might be better. It did say there were some limitations on the kinds of content it can support. Um, but anyway, that's another topic. So then again, in this route, I'm using the server side, the load function here to get both the fetch and the params. So params is where this ID value is going to be passed into, is query parameters. So I have params and fetch. So then I I'm fetching the folder again. I don't necessarily need to do that, but I I am doing that here. I get that. So now I have methods. I do want to look up. What I could have done is basically passed. I think I think maybe actually because I have methods in the layout, I might be able to export data here and get that same methods object and be able to use it here instead of getting it again. But that's what I'm doing here is just creating a new methods variable. Then I want to make method ID equal to the params ID that gets passed in. So whatever that ID, whatever the slug is that gets passed into the method URL endpoint I have here. So that's method ID. Then I want the method data. So what I'll do is in my methods array, I'll find the method where the name is. And here I'm kind of matching, taking the name, slugifying it again, and then using it as the match to check it. And then whichever one that is, I have the data uh, for that method. And now I can go get for that method data, I want to fetch method data.html. And so in the method data, you'll see an HTML endpoint that you can use to get the HTML response version of the method. So I wait for that, and then I just convert that response to text, the text version of that HTML. And now I have contents. I have the HTML contents. And so now I made a little extract body, um, or I guess I made a function that creates extract body variable. That's this, you pass in the dirty HTML, I'm calling it, and then getting back something clean. So, so the first thing I'll do is kind of go through, I replace, so the Google Docs, they have all these, like every heading link and everything um, are all internal to the doc. So I'm kind of doing a replace regex and replace on that here just to clean up those heading links. And then I take that HTML and I run it through the sanitize HTML function, which comes here. So I have the wiped HTML, which is just kind of like link cleaned up and stuff. Um, and now I run it through the sanitization function. So I'm enforcing the HTML boundary, allowing vulnerable tags like some embeds and links and stuff like that. Um, and then you can do this allowed tags, so you can go through and get like the default allowed tags and then add to it. I wanted images pre-rendered or yeah, pre-text and style elements, these three element types to allow through. And then for each attribute, what parameters of the attribute or what attribute of the element do I want to support? So you can say I want, whatever is in A, the only things I want to let through are href name and target, for example. For images, you can have a set. So this kind of sets up a filter to what you want to allow through the filter in the resulting HTML. And then that's what I have here. So now I return method data, which is some of the metadata and things about that, and then the method body. And then I use that extract body function and pass in the method contents that I get up above here, that text. So that gives me then back out the body and the data about the method. The method data, it's things like its title, the date it was created. It's like kind of metadata about that Google Doc. So I return those from this server function, and then in the page, then here I just export let data, and now I'll have the data method data name. So here I'm getting the name of the doc and putting that in H1. And then Svelte and SvelteKit have this like at HTML, which will take the text of the HTML and the body and render it through an HTML renderer, and the resultant HTML of that content shows up here. So now I have essentially the Google Doc um, content below this heading level one. And so you would see that here. So there's a couple issues with this. One is that Google Doc HTML they do all their styling with classes, and they're like numbered classes, and those numbers even change from document to document. So in one document, paragraph styling might be class 53, and in the next document, it's class 36. It it's very inconsistent. They don't so it's in this case, what I was doing was just whatever the styling is, I just allow it through and use it um, for that document. I just allow all the styling to make its way through. The downside of that is whatever somebody does in the Google Doc, that's what you get in your web page. And so consistency of design and typography and things like that are going to be kind of messed up. If I use the other library that takes the JSON data and I render that out to clean HTML, then I could actually inject some classes or use the structure. I could use like prose, and then every H1 looks the same, every paragraph looks the same, every whatever. And if I use something like Tailwind prose typography, so yeah, that's another option. So I was thinking about this in terms of um, Hugo, and what you might be able to do with that is still have some kind of a like a fetch. It'd be more like this, the HTML endpoint, like get those endpoint paths and fetch those, and then the result of that, get the text out of it. Um, there's like a text function in the data, so maybe that would work. The text of the HTML call. That I'm not sure. I haven't played with that enough in Hugo to figure that part out, but this is how it worked pretty well in SvelteKit. So I've been moving more of my sites and content from Hugo to SvelteKit, so I'm probably not going to go figure it out for Hugo. Um, but at least conceptually, if you can essentially query this endpoint, um, get the data for the method article, I mean, get for the doc, and then get the text out of it, um, and then clean it up. So pass it through some kind of sanitizer. I mean, you could just pass it through raw, but like I said, it's pretty garbage without this cleanup. So, um, and that's it. That's that's the end result. Now, I guess let me see if I have an old um, like a closed merge request with that. See what I have. No, this one doesn't have it. Yeah, I've ended up kind of moving away from using the Google Doc now for this case. Um, I probably am going to use ASCII Doc instead of Google Doc and have a better editor for that. But anyway, that's the idea. All right, thanks for listening. See you later.